The morning sun cast long shadows across Outpost Station Gamma 7 as Corporal Hana walked back from the mess hall. Her boots made soft thuds against the metal flooring. She had worn these boots for 3 years now. They were scuffed and the left one had a small tear near the ankle, but they fit her feet perfectly. More importantly, they had kept her alive through missions on 4 different planets. The meeting with the Thralix delegation had been tense. Hana remembered standing at attention in the conference room while the massive aliens discussed territorial boundaries with Captain Day. The Thralix were terrifying to look at. Each one stood at least 8 feet tall with bodies covered in black armor like skin. They had 4 arms and their eyes glowed amber in the dim light. When they spoke, their voices rumbled like distant thunder. Hana reached her quarters and pressed her palm against the door panel. It slid open with a soft hiss. She stepped inside and immediately froze. Her spare boots were gone. She always kept them lined up neatly beside her bunk, but now there was only empty floor. She checked under the bed. Nothing. She looked in her storage locker. Nothing there either. Someone had taken them. But who would steal old combat boots from a supply specialist? They were not even new. Hana grabbed her data pad and checked the security logs. The cameras showed nothing unusual in the hallway. She frowned and decided to search the common areas. Maybe someone had borrowed them as a joke. The other soldiers sometimes played pranks on each other to break up the monotony of outpost life. She walked through the corridors, asking everyone she met. Nobody had seen her boots. Private Hune, the station engineer, suggested checking the training yard. Some of the Thralix youngsters have been hanging around there, he said. Maybe they took them by mistake. The training yard was an open area behind the main building. It had obstacle courses, target ranges, and a large patch of dirt used for combat drills. As Hana approached, she heard strange sounds. Clicking noises mixed with frustrated growls. She rounded the corner and stopped dead in her tracks. 3 young Thralix were in the middle of the yard. They were smaller than the adults, maybe 7 feet tall, but still much larger than any human. And they were wearing her boots. One of them had a boot on what Hana assumed was its foot. The boot looked ridiculously small on the alien's limb. The Thralix was trying to walk but kept stumbling. The other 2 were attempting to put the second boot on, but their clawed feet would not fit properly. Hana watched in stunned silence. The 3 aliens were so focused on the boots that they had not noticed her yet. They were young, she realized. Their armor plating was lighter in color, and their movements had an awkward quality that reminded her of teenagers. The tallest one barked something in their language. The other 2 responded, and together they tried a new approach. One held the boot while another attempted to slide its foot inside. The boot split along the seam with a sad ripping sound. "Hey!" Hana shouted before she could stop herself. All 3 Thralix spun toward her. Their amber eyes locked onto her position. For a moment, nobody moved. Hana's hand instinctively went to the stun weapon on her belt. She was alone with 3 alien warriors who could tear her apart without much effort. Then the tallest one did something unexpected. It carefully removed the damaged boot from its companion and walked toward Hana. When it was about 10 feet away, it stopped and placed the boot on the ground. Then it stepped back and made a gesture with its upper arms, crossing them over its chest. Hana had seen that gesture before during the diplomatic briefings. It was a sign of respect among the Thralix. She relaxed slightly but kept her hand near her weapon. "Why did you take my boots?" she asked slowly, using simple words. She did not know how much human language they understood. The tall one tilted its head. "Learn," it said in heavily accented standard. The word came out rough and slow. "Learn from Hunter." "Hunter?" Hana repeated, confused. The alien gestured at her, then at the ground, then mimicked walking. "You move quiet. You move long time. No stop, we watch, we learn." Understanding dawned on Hana. During the joint exercises last week, she had been part of a patrol demonstration. The Thralix had been observing to learn human tactics, but Hana had just been doing her job, walking the perimeter for 6 hours straight. "Nothing special? You think I'm a hunter?" she asked, unable to hide her surprise. "Yes," the alien said firmly. "Soft-skinned predator. You track, you wait. You not give up?" It pointed at the boots. "We take, learn your way." "This wrong?" Hana realized she was dealing with a massive cultural misunderstanding. To these young Thralix, taking an item from a warrior they respected was apparently some kind of honor. They genuinely wanted to learn from her. Before she could respond, a deep voice boomed across the training yard. What is happening here? A massive Threlix adult strode toward them. This one had darker armor and wore markings that indicated high rank. The three youngsters immediately stood straighter, their posture becoming rigid. Captain Day appeared from the opposite direction, walking quickly. He must have been alerted by the security systems. Several human soldiers followed behind him, weapons ready but not raised. The adult Thralix looked at the boots on the ground, then at the three youngsters, then at Hana. Its eyes narrowed. "Explain," it growled. The tall youngster spoke rapidly in their language. The adult's expression changed from anger to disgust. It turned to Captain Day. "Commander Thresh," Day said carefully, "what seems to be the problem?" "These cubs have dishonored themselves," Thresh replied in perfect standard. "They have tried to learn from prey. This is unacceptable." The word prey stung. Hana felt her jaw tighten. She might be smaller and weaker than a Thralix, but she was no one's prey. Day held up a hand. "Perhaps we should discuss this inside." "All of us." Thresh looked like he wanted to argue, but finally nodded. The three young Thralix picked up the boots carefully and formed a line behind their commander. As they passed Hana, the tall one made eye contact. She saw something in those amber eyes. Not just respect, hope. Hana picked up her damaged boot and followed everyone inside. She had a feeling this was about to become much more complicated than a simple case of stolen footwear. The question was whether it would turn into a diplomatic incident or something else entirely. As she walked, she noticed the tall youngster still watching her. It was trying to match her stride, putting its feet down the same way she did. Despite everything, Hana felt a small smile tug at the corner of her mouth. Maybe these cubs could learn something after all. The conference room felt smaller with 8 Thralix packed inside. Commander Thresh dominated the space near the window, his forearms crossed in a way that made his disapproval obvious. The 3 young Thralix stood in a corner, their heads lowered. Captain Day sat at the head of the table with Hana beside him. Several other human officers lined the walls. Thresh spoke first, his voice hard. "These cubs have brought shame to our delegation. They will be punished and sent back to our homeworld immediately." The tallest cub flinched but said nothing. Hana noticed its claws digging into its palms. "Wait," Day said. "Before we make any decisions, I want to understand what happened. Corporal Hana, please explain the situation from your perspective." Hana stood, very aware that everyone was looking at her. "Sir, I discovered my spare boots were missing from my quarters. I tracked them to the training yard where I found these 3 attempting to wear them. When I asked why, they said they wanted to learn from me. They called me a hunter." One of the human officers snorted, then quickly covered it with a cough. Hana felt heat rise to her cheeks, but continued. "They seem to believe that taking an item from a respected warrior is how they begin training. I don't think they meant any disrespect, sir." Thresh's armor plates rattled with what might have been laughter. "Respect? They wish to learn from humans? You are prey species. You have no claws, no armor, no natural weapons. You hide behind your technology because without it you would die in moments on any real world." The room went very quiet. Hana saw Day's hand tighten into a fist, but his voice remained calm. "Commander Thresh, we have different strengths. That's why this alliance benefits both our people." "Alliance," Thresh repeated, making the word sound like an insult. "We agreed to this outpost because the matriarch commanded it. But teaching our young to be weak like you? Never." The tall cub suddenly stepped forward. "Commander, please. I am Rock. I speak for my brothers Ven and Tal. We do not wish to be weak. We wish to understand how humans survive. They are small, yes. Fragile, yes. But they are here. They explore death worlds. They fight. They do not quit. How do they do this with no armor? We wish to know." Thresh turned on Rock, his eyes blazing. "You wish to know? I will tell you. They survive because they hide, because they run, because they are not worth the effort to hunt. They are nothing without their machines." Something snapped inside Hana. She had been patient, diplomatic, but there was a limit. "Then prove it," she said. Everyone stared at her. Day started to speak, but Hana continued. "You say we're nothing without our machines, Commander? Fine. Let me train these 3 for 10 days. No advanced technology, just basic equipment and tactics. If I can't teach them anything useful, we'll concede the disputed mining rights in Sector 7. But if I can teach them something valuable, something that makes them better warriors, then you agree to real cooperation between our species." Day stood quickly. Corporal, you can't just— I accept, Thresh interrupted. His eyes gleamed with something that might have been satisfaction. 10 days. But when you fail, the cubs will face full punishment for this dishonor, and your kind will never again speak of training Thralix warriors. Rock, Ven, and Tal exchanged glances. They looked nervous but also excited. Sir, Hana said to Day, permission to conduct this training? Day looked at her for a long moment. She could see him calculating risks and benefits. Finally he nodded. Permission granted. But Corporal, you understand what you've committed to? Yes, sir, very well. Commander Thresh, we have an agreement? Thresh's mouth pulled back, showing rows of sharp teeth. We do, 10 days. I will watch every moment, and when this soft skin fails, we will be done with this foolishness forever. The meeting ended shortly after. As everyone filed out, Rock approached Hana carefully. Corporal Hana, he said, struggling with the human words. We are grateful. We will train hard. You better, Hana replied. Because if we fail, it's not just me who pays the price. It's all of us. Ven, who had been silent until now, spoke up. We will not fail. Show us the way of the soft-skinned predator. Tal, the quietest of the three, simply nodded, but his amber eyes held a fierce determination that Hana recognized. It was the same look she saw in the mirror before difficult missions. After the Thralix left, Day pulled Hana aside. I hope you know what you're doing. Honestly, sir, I have no idea, but I couldn't let him dismiss us like that. Humans aren't prey. We're survivors. Just remember, these are warriors from a species that considers violence a form of art. They could kill you by accident during training. I know, sir, but they won't. They want to learn. I saw it in their eyes, Day sighed. You have 10 days to prove that humans aren't weak. No pressure. That night, Hana lay in her bunk staring at the ceiling. What had she done? She was a supply specialist, not a combat instructor. Yes, she had field experience, but teaching alien predators? That was insane. She thought about what Rock had said. They wanted to know how humans survived without natural weapons. The answer was simple but hard to demonstrate. Humans adapted. They used tools, tactics, endurance, and most importantly, their minds. Hana pulled out her datapad and started making notes.
She could not teach them to be stronger.
They were already stronger. She could not teach them to be faster. They were already faster, but she could teach them patience, planning, and persistence. Humans had survived by being stubborn, by refusing to give up even when everything said they should. The question was whether Thralix cubs could learn these things. Their entire culture was built on direct confrontation and overwhelming force. Asking them to be subtle and patient went against their nature. But then again, wearing boots went against their anatomy. And they had tried anyway. A message appeared on her datapad. It was from Hyun, the engineer. Heard about your bet. I'm making modifications to some boots. If those cubs are going to train with you, they should at least have footwear that fits. Don't get killed out there, Hana smiled. That was Hyun's way of saying he believed in her. She spent the next 2 hours planning the training schedule. Day 1 would focus on endurance. If there was one thing humans excelled at, it was persistence. She remembered reading about ancient human hunters who would chase prey for days until the animal collapsed from exhaustion. The Thralix were built for power, but could they maintain a steady pace for hours? Day 2 would be about stealth and observation. Moving quietly, reading tracks, using the environment. Day 3, strategy and planning. The rest of the days would build on these foundations. It was not much of a plan, but it was a start. As she finally drifted off to sleep, Hana's last thought was about Thresh's words. He had called humans prey, but he was wrong. Prey runs until it is caught. Humans were something different. Humans were the ones who chased until there was nowhere left to run. Tomorrow, 3 young Thralix warriors were going to learn what that meant. And one way or another, the galaxy would see that humans were not prey. They were something much more dangerous. They were teachers. Dawn broke cold and gray over Outpost Gamma 7. Hana stood in the training yard with a pack on her back and her trusty boots laced tight. Rock, Ven, and Tal arrived exactly on time. Each wore the modified boots that Hyun had created overnight. The boots looked strange on their clawed feet, but they seemed to fit properly. Commander Thresh watched from a balcony above, his massive form casting a long shadow. He had brought 2 other adult Thralix with him. They would observe everything. Good morning, Hana said to the cubs. Today we start with something simple. Walking. Ven's armor plates rattled with what might have been amusement. We know how to walk, Corporal Hana. Maybe. But do you know how to walk for 8 hours without stopping? The three cubs looked at each other uncertainly. On my world, there were ancient humans who hunted by walking. They would follow an animal for days. The animal would run fast and escape, but the humans would keep walking. The animal would rest and the humans would catch up. The animal would run again and the humans would walk again. Eventually, the animal would be too tired to run anymore. Then the humans would take it. Rock tilted his head. This is your hunting method? It seems slow. It is slow, Hana agreed. But it works. Your people are strong and fast, but how long can you maintain that strength? Today we find out. We will walk the perimeter of the outpost. It is a 15-kilometer loop. We will walk it 3 times. No running, no stopping except for water breaks. Just steady walking. Tal spoke for the first time. This does not seem difficult, we'll see. Let's go, they started walking. For the first hour, the cubs seemed bored. They could easily have run the distance in minutes, and walking felt like an insult to their capabilities. Ven kept looking at Hana as if expecting her to call for a sprint, but Hana just kept walking. Her pace was steady, not fast but not slow either. She had learned this pace during military training. It was the speed humans could maintain for hours without exhausting themselves. By the second hour, the cubs started talking less. The modified boots helped, but walking was still strange for them. Their legs were built for explosive movement, for leaping and charging. This constant, steady motion used muscles differently. During the water break at the halfway point of the first loop, Rock asked, "Why do you breathe that way?" Hana realized she had fallen into her marching rhythm without thinking. It helps control your energy. Breathe in for 3 steps, out for 3 steps. It keeps your heart rate steady. Try it, they tried. It was awkward at first, but Tal picked it up quickly. He started counting his steps under his breath. The third hour was harder. Ven started limping slightly. His right rear leg was not used to the motion. Hana called a break and showed him how to stretch the muscle. The Thralix's body was different from human anatomy, but the basic principles were the same. On Earth, soldiers march for training, Hana explained as Ven stretched. Some humans can walk 30 kilometers in a day with full packs. It is not about being fast. It is about not stopping, but why? Rock asked. If you can use vehicles or fly, why walk? Because sometimes there are no vehicles. Sometimes technology fails. Sometimes the terrain is too rough. But legs always work, and human legs were made for walking long distances. By the 4th hour, as they started the second loop, all 3 cubs were struggling. Their breathing had become heavier. They were not exhausted, but they were feeling the strain in ways they had not expected. This is harder than fighting, Ven admitted. Fighting is intense but short, Hana said. This is different. This teaches you to manage your energy, to understand your limits, to push through discomfort without panic. Thresh watched from above, occasionally making notes on a datapad. Hana could feel his eyes on them, waiting for her to fail. Hour 5 brought the first real test. Ven's limping got worse. He could have continued, but Hana saw the pain in how he held his body. "Stop," she commanded. Ven looked ashamed. "I can continue. I know you can. But that's not the lesson. Human soldiers know when to push and when to rest. Pushing through injury makes it worse. Then you cannot fight when it matters. Sit down," she examined his leg. The muscle was cramping from unfamiliar use. She showed him how to massage it properly, working out the tension. Then she took some elastic bandage from her pack and wrapped his leg for support. "Humans are fragile," she said as she worked. "So we learned to take care of injuries quickly. We invented bandages, medicines, techniques to heal, not because we are weak, but because we are practical. If you are hurt and cannot fight, you are useless. Better to fix small problems before they become big ones." Ven stood and tested the leg. "It feels better." "Thank you, Corporal." They completed the second loop. By now 6 hours had passed. The cubs were moving slower, their usual aggressive posture replaced by something more tired. But they were still moving. "One more loop," Hana announced. Rock looked at the path ahead, then at Hana. "You are not tired." "I am tired," Hana corrected, "but I am used to being tired. That is another human skill. We are comfortable with discomfort." The final loop was the hardest. The cubs' feet hurt despite the modified boots. Their legs ached. Their pride was wounded by struggling with something as simple as walking. but Hana kept them moving with a steady stream of encouragement and occasional breaks. "You are doing well," she said during one break. "Your bodies are not designed for this, but you are adapting. That is the important part." "Why is adapting important?" Tal asked. "Should we not use our natural strengths?" "Yes, use your strengths. But what happens when you face an enemy in an environment where your strengths do not help? What if you cannot charge because the ground is unstable? What if you cannot use your power because the space is too confined? Adapting means you can fight anywhere against anyone." This seemed to strike something in Tal. He nodded slowly, his eyes thoughtful. When they finally completed the third loop, all three cubs immediately sat down. The sun was setting. They had been walking for nearly 8 hours with only short breaks. Hana remained standing, though her own legs were sore. "You did well today. Better than I expected. We barely survived walking," Ven said miserably. "How is this victory?" "Because you finished. Your instinct probably told you to quit after the first loop. Your body wanted to stop, but you kept going. That is what humans do. We keep going." Rock stood up slowly. "Tomorrow, what do we learn?" "Tomorrow we learn to be quiet. Come at dawn, and wear dark clothing if you have any." As the cubs limped away toward their quarters, Thresh descended from his observation post. He approached Hana with his usual intimidating stride. "They are exhausted from walking," he said, disgust clear in his voice. "You have made them weak." "No, Commander. I have shown them a different kind of strength. Tomorrow you will see more." "I doubt it, but I will watch. I will watch you fail." After he left, Captain Day appeared from the command building. "How did it go?" "They struggled, but they finished. That is what matters." "And you? Are you okay?" Hana smiled tiredly. "I am comfortable with discomfort, sir." That night, Hana soaked her feet and reviewed her notes for day 2. Teaching aliens to be stealthy would be challenging. Thralics were large, loud, and built for direct confrontation. But humans had learned to hunt quietly out of necessity. If she could convey even the basic principles, it would be progress. She thought about Tal's question. Why was adapting important? The answer was survival. Humans had survived ice ages, droughts, predators, and 100 other extinction-level events by adapting. They were not the strongest or fastest, but they could change their tactics, learn new skills, and figure out solutions. That was the real lesson these cubs needed to learn. Not how to walk long distances or move quietly. Those were just examples. The real lesson was that survival meant being willing to change, to try new things, to become more than you were. And if Hana could teach them that, then maybe humans and Thralics could build something stronger than either species alone. The distress signal arrived on day 6 of training. Hana was teaching the cubs about reading terrain when Captain Day's urgent message came through her comm unit. "All personnel, we have a situation. Mining colony Delta 9 is under attack by raiders. All available units report to the briefing room immediately." Hana looked at Rock, Van, and Tal. They had changed over the past 6 days. They moved with more awareness now. Their steps deliberate rather than aggressive. They had learned to control their breathing, to read tracks, to use shadows and cover. They were not experts, but they were learning. "Come with me," Hana said. "This might be important." The briefing room was crowded. Human soldiers filled one side while Thralics warriors occupied the other. Commander Thresh stood near the front with several of his officers. Everyone fell silent when Captain Day activated the holo display. "Delta 9 colony sent this message 2 hours ago," Day explained. A recording played. The voice was panicked, punctuated by weapon fire in the background. "Under attack by unknown raiders. Approximately 20 hostiles. They have fortified positions in the processing facility, requesting immediate assistance." The holo display showed a map of the colony. It was built into a dense jungle valley. The processing facility sat at the center, surrounded by thick vegetation. "The terrain is problematic," Day continued. "Jungle canopy is too dense for air support. Ground vehicles cannot navigate the undergrowth. We will need to go in on foot." Thresh stepped forward. "My warriors can handle this. We will crush these raiders quickly." "With respect, Commander, the jungle terrain favors ambush tactics. A direct assault could result in heavy casualties." Day zoomed in on the facility. "The raiders have set up defensive positions. They know we are coming. They will be prepared. Then we hit them faster than they can react," Thresh argued. "Overwhelming force is the solution." Hana surprised herself by speaking up. "Captain, request permission to speak." Day raised an eyebrow but nodded. "Go ahead, Corporal." "Sir, The jungle terrain negates most advantages of direct assault. The Thralix warriors are powerful, but the raiders will have clear firing lanes prepared. They will pick off attackers before they can close the distance. Hana pointed at the map. But a small team using stealth could approach undetected. They could gather intelligence, identify weak points, and coordinate a strike when the main force is ready. Thresh turned to her, his eyes cold. You suggest sneaking like cowards rather than fighting with honor? I suggest not walking into a killing field, Hana replied calmly. Honor means nothing if you are dead. Corporal Hana speaks wisdom, a new voice said. Everyone turned. An older Thralix female entered the room. She wore ceremonial armor marked with symbols that indicated the highest rank. Even Thresh straightened his posture and lowered his head slightly. Matriarch Kessa, Day said, clearly surprised. We did not know you had arrived at the station. I have been observing the training, Kessa said. Her voice was deep but less aggressive than Thresh's. I wanted to see these cubs who wish to learn human ways. She looked directly at Hana. You have taught them well. They move differently now. More patient, more aware. Thank you, Matriarch, Hana said carefully. Kessa studied the map. I agree with the corporal. This situation requires cunning, not force. I propose a solution. Send Corporal Hana with the 3 cubs as reconnaissance. They have trained together. Let them prove the value of their new skills. Thresh's armor plates rattled with anger. Matriarch, with respect, these are cubs. Sending them into combat with only a human for support is exactly what they need. Kessa interrupted. They wish to learn. Now they will apply what they learned. Commander Thresh, you will lead the main force but wait for intelligence from the reconnaissance team before attacking. Captain Day, do you agree? Day looked at Hana for a long moment. She saw the question in his eyes. She nodded slightly. Agreed, Day said. Corporal Hana, you will lead Rock, Ven, and Tal on reconnaissance. Report enemy positions and defenses. Do not engage unless absolutely necessary. Rock, Ven, and Tal stood straighter. Hana saw excitement mixed with nervousness in their expressions. We will not fail, Rock said firmly. 1 hour later, Hana and the 3 cubs were in a transport heading toward Delta 9. Hyun had modified their equipment, giving each cub a comm unit and basic scanning gear. The modified boots had been further improved for jungle terrain. Remember your training, Hana said as they approached the drop zone. Move slowly. Watch where you step. Use the vegetation for cover. We are not here to fight. We are here to observe and report. Understood, Tal said. The quiet cub had become the best at stealth over the past few days. He naturally understood the value of patience. They landed 2 kilometers from the colony and began moving through the jungle. The terrain was brutal. Thick vines hung from massive trees. The ground was uneven and covered with rotting vegetation. Every step had to be carefully placed. The cubs struggled at first. Their size made moving through the dense growth difficult, but they applied what they had learned. They moved one at a time while the others watched. They tested the ground before putting their weight down. They avoided dry branches that might snap. After an hour of careful movement, they reached a ridge overlooking the processing facility. Hana pulled out her binoculars and began counting hostiles. I see 12 visible guards, she whispered into her comm. But there could be more inside the buildings. They have heavy weapons at the north and south entrances. The east side has lighter coverage. Rock pointed at something with his lower left arm. There on the west side. Do you see? The wall has damage. Old damage, but it creates a gap in their defenses. Hana looked. He was right. The wall had collapsed partially, probably from previous mining explosions. The raiders had not bothered to guard it properly because the jungle grew thick there. Good eye, she whispered. That is our entry point recommendation. Tal, can you get closer and verify? Tal nodded and disappeared into the undergrowth. His dark clothing and careful movements made him nearly invisible. 15 minutes later, he returned. The gap is guarded, but only by 2 raiders, he reported quietly. They are not paying attention. They face inward, expecting attack from the main approaches. Perfect. Hana activated her comm to the main force. Captain Day, we have a breach point. West wall collapsed section. Minimal guard coverage. Copy that. Day's voice crackled back. Can you eliminate the guards quietly? Hana looked at the cubs. This was the moment of truth. They had trained for days, but training and combat were different things. We can try, sir, but we need to move now before they rotate guards. Proceed with caution. Main force is moving into position. You have 20 minutes. Hana looked at Rock, Ven, and Tal. This is what we trained for. Slow movements. Use cover. Do not rush. If something goes wrong, we retreat immediately. Understood? Understood, they whispered in unison. They moved down from the ridge, taking 30 minutes to cover what normally would be a 5-minute walk. Every step was calculated. Every sound was avoided. The cubs were completely focused, their predatory instincts channeled into controlled patience. They reached the wall gap. The 2 raider guards were visible through the vegetation. They were some species Hana did not recognize, but they carried advanced plasma rifles. Ven positioned himself on the left. Rock took the right. Tal stayed with Hana as backup. They had practiced this kind of coordination during training, using hand signals instead of words. Hana held up 3 fingers. Then 2, then 1. Ven and Rock moved simultaneously. They were not silent, but they were fast enough that it did not matter. Before the guards could raise their weapons, the 2 cubs were on them. A brief struggle, muffled sounds, and it was over. Clear, Rock whispered. They dragged the unconscious guards into the jungle and secured them. Then Hana led them through the gap into the facility grounds. Inside, they could see the full picture. The raiders had hostages gathered in the central building. Guards patrolled in pairs. Heavy weapons were positioned at key points. This is going to be harder than I thought, Hana muttered. They are better organized than we expected. But we see their pattern now, Tal observed. The guards rotate every 10 minutes. When they change positions, there is a moment when the east corridor is unwatched. Hana smiled. Tal was thinking tactically, using observation instead of just force. Good. We report this to Captain Day. Let the main force know where to focus their attack. As Hana transmitted the detailed intelligence, she heard Rock say quietly, We could have charged in. We could have fought them directly, and died, Ven added. But this way, we help rescue the hostages without casualties. This is the human way, Tal said. Not weaker, just different. The main force assault happened 20 minutes later. With the intelligence from Hana's team, they knew exactly where to strike. The raiders were overwhelmed quickly. The hostages were rescued without injuries. As they regrouped after the mission, Commander Thresh approached Hana and the cubs. His expression was unreadable. You succeeded, he said simply. We worked together, Hana replied. That is what made the difference. Thresh looked at his 3 young warriors. You moved like shadows. You waited when your instincts told you to attack. He paused, seeming to struggle with the words. You adapted. Corporal Hana taught us, Rock said proudly. Thresh turned to Hana. Perhaps I was wrong about humans. Perhaps there is more than one way to... The celebration after the successful rescue was subdued but genuine. Human and Thralic soldiers shared the mess hall for the first time without tension. Rock, Ven, and Tal sat with some human soldiers trying to understand jokes and stories. The language barrier made things difficult, but laughter translated well enough. Hana watched from a corner table, exhausted but satisfied. They had pulled it off. The cubs had proven themselves, and more importantly, they had shown that cooperation between species was possible. Captain Day approached with 2 cups of coffee. He handed one to Hana and sat down. You should be proud, he said. What you accomplished in 10 days was remarkable. The cubs did the hard part, Hana replied. They were willing to learn. That made all the difference. Still, you took a big risk. If anything had gone wrong during the mission, the consequences would have been severe. I know, sir, but sometimes risks are worth it. Before Day could respond, a commotion at the entrance made everyone turn. Matriarch Kessa entered, followed by Commander Thresh and several other high-ranking Thralics. The room fell silent. Corporal Hana, Kessa said, her voice carrying across the space. Please come forward. Hana stood and walked to the center of the room, very aware that everyone was watching. Rock, Ven, and Tal moved to stand beside her, their posture protective. You have completed your 10-day challenge, Kessa announced. You have taught 3 young warriors skills they did not possess. You have proven that humans and Thralics can work together effectively. This is a success by any measure. Murmurs of agreement came from both humans and Thralics. However, Kessa continued, there is something more important that must be discussed. Something that has been hidden for too long. She paused, her amber eyes scanning the room. I am going to tell you a story. A true story from Thralic's history. One that we buried because it made us uncomfortable. Thresh shifted uneasily but said nothing. Many generations ago, Our home world had another intelligent species. They were small without natural armor or claws. They had soft skin and fragile bones. We called them the soft ones. Hana felt a chill run down her spine. Other humans in the room leaned forward, suddenly very interested. The soft ones were prey, Kessa continued. Or so we thought. We hunted them as we hunted all prey. But these creatures were different. They did not run blindly. They set traps. They used tools. They worked in groups. They would lead our hunters into dangerous terrain where our strength became a weakness. They would scatter and regroup. They would wound one of us and then wait for others to come help, then trap them all. The room was completely silent now. Hunting the soft ones became our greatest challenge. They pushed us to become better hunters, to think more carefully, to plan ahead. Many of our finest warriors died trying to catch them. Eventually, we succeeded. We hunted them to extinction. We celebrated this victory. Kessa's voice became harder, but we also buried the truth. We did not want to admit that the greatest enemy we ever faced had no claws, no armor, no natural weapons. We did not want to admit that weak creatures had nearly defeated us by being clever. She turned to look directly at Hana. When I first heard about these human training methods, I was curious. When I saw the cubs wearing boots trying to learn human ways, I recognized something. These humans are like the soft ones. Small, fragile, but persistent, clever, adaptable. Thresh finally spoke. Matriarch, why reveal this now? It is ancient history. Because we are making the same mistake again, Kessa replied firmly. We look at humans and see prey. We see weakness. But that is not what they are. They are what the soft ones could have become if we had not destroyed them. They are survivors who conquered their world not with strength but with intelligence. She gestured to Rock, Ven, and Tal. These cubs understood something that we adults forgot. They looked at Corporal Hana and saw not prey but a teacher. They saw someone who survived against odds that should have killed her, and they wanted to learn that skill. Hana found her voice. Matriarch, I am honored by your words, but we are just trying to survive like anyone else. Exactly, Kessa said. You survive. That is what makes you dangerous. That is what makes you valuable. The soft ones taught us to be better hunters by being impossible to catch. You humans can teach us to be better warriors by showing us new ways to fight. She turned to address everyone in the room. This is why I support full cooperation between our species. Not because humans are weak and need our protection, but because they think differently than we do. Together we can be stronger than either species alone. Thresh stepped forward, and for the first time Hana saw uncertainty in his posture. Matriarch, I have spent my life believing in Thralic superiority. What you describe, it changes everything. It should change everything, Kessa agreed. We have been arrogant, Thresh. We have believed that strength alone makes a warrior. But look at what these cubs accomplished today. They used patience instead of rage. They used observation instead of force. And they succeeded where a direct assault would have failed. Rock spoke up, his voice steady despite the attention. Commander Thresh, Corporal Hana taught us that weakness and strength are not opposites. She is weak in body but strong in mind. We are strong in body, but we're weak in patience. Together we covered each other's weaknesses. Ven added, she taught us that survival is more important than honor. Dead warriors have no honor. Living warriors can learn and grow stronger. Tal, as usual, said the most profound thing with the fewest words. She taught us that there is more than one way to hunt. Thresh was quiet for a long moment. Then he did something that shocked everyone. He removed one of his ceremonial armbands and approached Hana. He held it out to her. Among my people, this is given to those who teach us valuable lessons. I disagreed with your methods. I thought you would fail. I was wrong. You have taught not just the cubs, but all of us. Accept this as a sign of respect. Hana took the band carefully. It was heavy, made of some dark metal with intricate engravings. Thank you, Commander. I will honor this gift. There is more, Kessa said. I am officially proposing a joint training program. Human instructors will teach Thralic's warriors about tactics, patience, and adaptability. Thralic's instructors will teach humans about direct combat, strength training, and combat endurance. Both species will benefit. Captain Day stood. On behalf of humanity, we accept this proposal. This is a historic moment for both our peoples. The rest of the evening was filled with planning and discussion. Rock, Ven, and Tal were declared the first graduates of the program. They would become instructors themselves, teaching other Thralics what they had learned. Later, as the celebration wound down, Hana found herself outside on the observation deck. The stars were bright against the dark sky. She held the armband Thresh had given her, running her fingers over the engravings. Rock joined her, moving quietly despite his size. "Corporal Hana, may I ask a question?" "Of course." "When you challenged Commander Thresh to the training agreement, were you afraid?" Hana smiled. "Terrified. I had no idea if I could actually teach you anything useful. But you did not show fear. You stood firm." "That is another human skill," Hana said. "We feel fear, but we do not let it control us. Fear warns us of danger, but courage lets us face that danger anyway." Rock was quiet for a moment. "I understand now why you are a survivor. It is not that you do not feel fear or pain or exhaustion. It is that you keep going despite feeling those things." "Exactly. That is the real human strength. Not that we are tough, but that we are stubborn." Rock made a sound that might have been laughter. "I think Thralics and humans are more similar than we thought. We are both stubborn species. Perhaps that is why this partnership will work." Ven and Tal joined them on the deck. The four of them stood together looking at the stars. "What happens now?" Ven asked. "Do we continue training?" "You will train others," Hana said. "You will teach them what you learned. And I will learn from Thralics instructors. We will all become better warriors together." "I look forward to this," Tal said quietly. "There is much we can teach each other." Hana thought about everything that had happened. It had started with stolen boots and misunderstanding. It had nearly caused a diplomatic incident, but instead it had become a bridge between species. She looked down at the armband again. 10 days ago she had been a supply specialist who just wanted her boots back. Now she was a symbol of cooperation between humans and Thralics. Life was strange sometimes. "Thank you," Rock said suddenly, "for seeing us as students instead of threats. For being patient with us. For teaching us not to be ashamed of learning from someone different." "Thank you for being willing to learn," Hana replied. That took real courage. As they stood together under the stars, Hana realized something important. Humans had survived by being adaptable, but they had thrived by being teachers. They shared knowledge freely, built alliances, and found strength in cooperation. The Thralics had survived by being powerful, but they could thrive by learning from others. By accepting that strength came in many forms, together they would be unstoppable. The galaxy was dangerous and full of threats. But now it had something new. Humans and Thralics working together, learning from each other. By HFY